I intend to study and teach, to take and give reminders, benefit and assistance, and to inspire myself and others to hold fast to the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to call to guidance and direct to goodness, seeking the countenance of Allah, His pleasure, nearness and reward. Okay, so Bismillah, Assalamu alaikum. So we are going to go straight into the session. I won't do so much of a recap. I will try and fit that in towards the end. Now, what I want to do today, inshallah, is I want us to try and go back to the basics, as in terms of how you would normally learn the different places of articulation. So up until now, we've been going through the alphabet, and I've been going through, as in terms of how you would pronounce each and every letter. But normally, at the start of the topic or the chapter of makharij, so makharij basically means places of articulation. Okay, so places of articulation. Okay, so normally when you learn Tajweed, you would learn it as, and one of the chapters would be for you to learn the places of articulation. And like I've mentioned earlier, that as in terms of when we have gone through the letters, in terms of like the alif, ba, da, tha, and so forth, I've mentioned the concept of the throat, I've mentioned the concept of the lips and so forth. So we kind of know that there are certain letters that are pronounced from each area of our, either our face or our mouth or internally. But in order for us to just formalize that that form of our knowledge, I'm just going to go through it in this style. First of all, the title being makharij, places of articulation. Okay, so how many places of articulation do you think the letters are pronounced from? So if I was to say to you that I think there's 28 Arabic letters, and so those 28 Arabic letters are all pronounced from different areas of our mouth or internally, how many places do you think that there are? Just choose, guess. Okay, so Haifa saying 8. So we're talking about the concept of like the throat and so forth. Okay, I think everyone else is too shy. Okay, so there's five places. Okay, so I've already mentioned one, I've actually mentioned 2. So what's the ones that I've mentioned? What did I just mention now? The throat, yeah. Okay, so throat is what we would normally learn as number 2. What was the other one? Okay, so there's tongue, yeah. So tongue is normally number 3. And then we've said lips, yeah. Is there anything else that we've mentioned so far? So this is talking about the Arabic letters and also generally the sounds that we would make when we are pronouncing. Okay, so teeth, technically teeth would not be classified as one because the sound doesn't come from the teeth. We use the teeth to help us, but it's not where the sound comes from. So when we're talking about places of articulation, it's where the sound comes from. So Syra is saying the chest, and so technically, yes, but it's referred to more as the oral cavity. And I'll explain what that means when we go through it in more detail. So for now, the first one is the oral cavity. Okay, so that's that mouth area. So it's essentially your mouth. Okay, but the sound would come from the chest and outwards. So in English, to be fair, in English, everything comes from our oral cavity. We don't really pronounce from the throat, the tongue, the lips, and so forth. Okay, and then we have, as some of you have mentioned, the nose. So again, we don't say nose, we say nasal cavity, because it's actually the area above the nose where that sound comes from. And that's normally, as we know, it's gunna, where the gunna comes from, that nasalization. Okay, so if you just write that down in your notes for me, please. So there are 5 places of articulation. First being oral cavity, the second being the throat, the third being the tongue, the fourth being the lips, and the 5th being the nasal cavity. You're welcome to take a picture, it helps. Okay, so to go into a little bit more detail, now with the throat, we've already gone through it, as in terms of, we said that the throat has how many sections? 3 sections, the top, middle, and bottom. Top, middle, bottom. Okay, so the sound, the place of articulation, also, maybe I should have mentioned that when we're talking about these 5 places of articulation, these are known as the 5 general places of articulation. Okay, so general meaning that it overall comes from that specific place. That doesn't make any sense. From that general place. Okay, so 5 places. We're saying 5 general places. What does that mean? So we're saying there's 5 general places, number 2 being the throat. So if I was to say to you that the throat is divided into 3, then how many specific places of articulation does the throat have? And the answer is 3. Okay, so when we're talking about specific, we're saying that generally there are 6 letters that are pronounced from the throat. Okay, we know that the ha, the ghain, the ha, the ain, the ha, and the hamza, 6 letters that come from the throat. But where do they come from specifically? You would say that there are 2 letters that specifically come from the top of the throat, 2 letters that specifically come from the middle of the throat, and 2 letters that specifically come from the bottom of the throat. Okay, so the throat is one general place of articulation, but it has 3 specific places: the top, the middle, and the bottom. Okay, hopefully that doesn't, it's not confusing. Okay, the next one is the oral cavity, which in Arabic is called jawf. Okay, if anybody wanted to know the Arabic terms. So jawf is known as the oral cavity. Now, how many letters, let's do a guess system. How many letters do you think are pronounced from the mouth? Well, I say it's a guess thing, but to be fair, this one, it seems, is normally the one that confuses students the most. Okay, so there are 3 letters that are pronounced from the jawf. That is alif, waw, ya. Okay, so I'm just giving you a heads up that these, when we learn it in this style, it will seem a little bit confusing, but once we start to find examples and apply it, it's really the easiest one. Okay, so I'm just going to continue as the theory for now. So there's 3 letters, the alif, waw, and ya, that is pronounced from the jawf, so from the chest and outwards. Okay, so what does that mean? First of all, your question should be, how can the waw be pronounced from the jawf? Because what is the waw pronounced from? Waw. The lips. Okay, so, and ya, we've already learned that the ya is pronounced from the middle of the tongue. Remember, it's the middle of the tongue being lifted up. And the alif, we said that the alif is the same as the hamza, and the hamza comes from the bottom of the throat. Okay, so when we're saying that these 3 letters are pronounced from the jawf, we're saying that it's alif, waw, and ya, but there are conditions. Okay, so conditions. The first condition is that the alif, waw, and ya cannot have anything on it. Okay, so no fatha, no kasra, no dhamma on it. Okay, so it has nothing on it. Nothing on it. That's the first condition. Now the second condition is that the alif must have a fatha before it. Okay, so the alif must have a fatha before it. The second one is that the waw must have a dhamma before it. And then the third is that the ya must have a kasra before it. Okay, so again, the fatha must come before the alif, the waw must have a dhamma before it, the ya must have a kasra before it. Okay, and these are normally known as huruful mad. Okay, so I'm just going to repeat that again. The first general place of articulation is the jawf, which is the oral cavity. How many letters are pronounced from there? The alif, waw, and ya. So there's 3. The conditions are that this alif, this waw, and this ya cannot have anything on it. And then the second condition is that the alif must be preceded by a fatha, the waw must be preceded by a dhamma, the ya must be preceded by a kasra. And these are normally known as huruf al-mad. What does that mean by huruf al-mad? Have we got that? Can someone just take it as a picture? Maybe someone can send it into the group. Well, no one can send anything in the group. Send it to me. Okay, we got that. What does it mean? Let's use an example. Okay, so it's nice and simple, makes sense when you see an example. Okay, so we have the word qala. Here you can see an alif. Okay, it's that line there. It doesn't have anything on it. Okay, so it meets the first condition. It doesn't have anything on it. And then the second condition is that an alif must be preceded by a fatha. It doesn't matter what this letter is. It can be an alif, ba, ta, tha, jim, ha, kha, whatever it can be. Okay, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is that alif must have a fatha before it. If that alif has a dhamma before it, it does not fall into this category. If that alif has a kasra before it, it does not fall into the category. It has to have a fatha before it. How would we pronounce this? You would know that I need to stretch this. You do this in your recitation all the time. You just maybe didn't pay that much attention to it because you never needed to. Okay, but you were taught that whenever you see an alif with a fatha before it, you would stretch it as 2 harakas. Okay, so you would read this. You wouldn't read this as qala, you would read it as qala. Okay, so what does it mean that you are pronouncing it from the oral cavity or from the jawf? It means that it needs to be nice and clear. So when you're reciting, you're saying it like qala, qala, and it's nice and clear. Not qala, where it's just weak. It's meant to be strong. So when you're sitting, when you're reading Quran, you're meant to sit with your shoulders nice and straight, so that breathing system is nice and clear. Which is why some people find it a struggle when they're reciting and they're not, they lose their breath and so forth. It's normally because of the breathing system. Okay, so when you're reciting, you're meant to breathe from the stomach and out. Okay, and it takes a lot of practice to be able to recite an ayah without pausing and stopping. Okay, so the idea is that with the oral cavity, you are breathing in, okay, from the stomach, and then it's coming out of your chest and then out of your oral cavity, which is essentially your mouth. Okay, so here I would say it as qala, qala. Okay, so that's the one with the alif with the fatha before it. Now the second one was the waw. Okay, so let's do the same system, same word essentially, or same root. Okay, and we have here the word ulu. So first of all, you see a waw. Now, if this waw had a fatha on it, or a kasra on it, or a dhamma on it, it wouldn't fall into category of al-jawf. It would fall into the normal waw, which is pronounced from the lips. But because that waw has nothing on it, the second thing that you would do is that you would look at what comes before. If it has a dhamma before it, then you would pronounce it with the jawf, with the oral cavity. If that waw had a fatha before it and it was qawlu, it would not fall into the category of haruf al-mad. It would not fall into the category of al-jawf. If it had a kasra before it, I don't even know how you'd pronounce it with a kasra. Qulu, it doesn't even exist. So the idea is that the waw must be preceded by a dhamma in order for it to fall into this category of al-jawf. The third example is with the ya. So here again, you see the ya, it has nothing on it, so it meets the first condition. The letter before, it doesn't matter what letter that is. I'm just using the example of the qaf throughout, but it doesn't matter if that was a ba instead. You would look at whether it's got kasra before it. If it's got kasra before it, then it falls into the category of number 1, al-jawf, the oral cavity, and you would pronounce it nice and clearly and say it as qila, qila. Okay, so let's try it with our examples. Qala, qala, qulu, qulu, and qila, qila. Okay, so as another point that you can put down in your notes is that the haruf al-mad are stretched as 2 harakas. 2 harakas. Harakas is just normally a word that you would use, what is used in Arabic in terms of tajweed terminology, and it just basically means 2 counts, or the equivalence of 2 fatas, the equivalent of 2 kasra. So it's meant to be a natural thing, and you're not really expected to count it, as in terms of like, I wouldn't be sitting there thinking, qala, like as in by the time I even put my fingers down, with the other stretches, like the 5s and the 6s and so forth, you normally use the hand system, where you would, by the time it takes you to put your finger down, that's how long. So for example, if this was 5 harakas, I would say it as qala. Okay, but with a 2, it's meant to just be normal and natural. Okay, you know that it needs to be longer than the a, ba, da sound, double that basically. And so haruf al-mad, so when again, haruf al-mad, whenever you see an alif with a fatah before it, a waw with a dhamma before it, a ya with a kasra before it, it is stretched as 2 harakas. Hopefully that makes sense. We'll try and do revision over it again and again so that it's just there within, but make sure it's in your notes because it'll be easier for you to refer back to when we're there. Okay, so I'm going to go straight into the surah that we learned, what we were going through yesterday, inshallah, because we didn't complete with the ra, and I don't want it to be a case where we're missing things. So just bear with me. Yeah, it was this surah. Okay, so Surah Alaq, and we're just going to go through the rule with the letter Ra. Okay, so those of you who were here yesterday, you noted down how many heavy Ra's there are in this surah, and then we didn't have enough time to go through the answer. So I'll just give it as 2 minutes, just find your notes or wherever you did, write it down, and then you can also have a look if in case you've missed any, and then I'm just going to go through it quickly. So remember, we're looking for a ra with a fatah on it, a ra with a dhamma on it, a ra with a fatatain, a ra with a dhammatain, and then we also learned the other part of the rule, which is when the ra has a sukoon, we look at the letter before. If the letter before has a fatah or a dhamma, we pronounce the ra heavy. If the ra has a kasra, we pronounce it light. Okay. Let's go through it, inshallah. So the first ayah, it says, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaqa. So we've got 2 there, the Iqra, and then we've got the Rabbika. That's 2. Khalaqa al-insana min alaq. Iqra, so again the ra here. Wa rabbuka, the ra again, that's 4. Akram, again that's a ra with a fatah on it, that's 5. Alladhi allama bil qalam. علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم كلا إن الإنسان لا يطغى الرأى, so the ra here, that's 6. الرآه استغنى إن إلى ربك, sorry 1 second, إن إلى, where was I? إن إلى ربك, so the ra here, what was I on 7? And then ربك رجع, that's 8. أرأيت الذي, the ra again there, that's 9. أرأيت الذي ينهى عبدا إذا صلى. أرأيت, the ra here again, that's 10. إن كان على الهدى أو أمر, again the ra here, أو أمر بالتقوى. أرأيت, again that's 7, no that's 12, sorry. أرأيت إن كذب وتولى ألم يعلم بأن الله يرى. Okay, that's 13. So just so you know that here in the ayah number 14, the yara, that little alif at the top, it's known as a dagger alif, and that would be, again, it would be classified as a heavy one because it has the sound. Okay, it's a stretched version. So just so you know, whenever you see that little line, that's called a dagger alif. Okay, and that is would classify that ra as a heavy one. Okay, so we're on 13, I believe. كلا لئن لم ينتهي لنسفعا بالناصية ناصية كاذبة خاطية فليدعو ناديا. Okay, so that's 13. Hopefully you all found 13. If you didn't, then just note down the number 13. Go through the surah again in your own time and see whether you can find those heavy ras. Okay, and so while we have the next 6 minutes, I'm just going to bring up another surah and try and find the other rules. Okay, so what surah did I choose today? I chose Adiyat. Okay, so this time we're looking for, firstly, we're looking for any nouns or memes with a shadda on it. Noon or meme mushadda we're looking for. Okay, so note it down on your piece of paper, please. Okay, so let's go through this rule as we go along. Okay, so noon mushadda, meme mushadda. How many did we find? Okay, so we've got وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبْحًا none, فَالْمُورِيَاتِ قَدْحًا none, فَالْمُغِيرَاتِ صُبْحًا none, فَأَثَرْنَ بِهِ نَقْعًا none, فَوَسَطْنَ بِهِ جَمْعًا none, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ one, لِرَبِّهِ لَكَنُودٌ وَإِنَّهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ لَشَهِيدٌ. So we had وَإِنَّهُ, that was number 2. And then again, وَإِنَّهُ لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ. That was number 3. أَفَلَا يَعْلَمُ إِذَا بُعْثِرَ مَا فِي الْقُبُورِ none. وَحُصِّلَ مَا فِي الصُّدُورِ none. إِنَّ رَبَّهُمْ بِهِمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ لَخَبِيرٌ. That's 4. إِنَّ رَبَّهُ. Okay, so hopefully you found 4. If you didn't, then write down the number 4, write it down and go through it again later on in your own time, inshallah. The next rule is the rule of qalqala. Okay, so I think you guys must have heard me reciting quite a lot of qalqalas in this surah. Okay, so try and pay attention to them. Okay, I'll write down on the board what those qalqala letters are to remind you. So you're looking for qaf. Remember, all with the sukoon on it. Qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. And they have to have a sukoon on it. This can be in the middle of a word. It can be at the end of an ayah. If it's at the end of an ayah, we naturally put a sukoon on it. So it would still apply. Okay, if you found them, you can move on to the heavy letters. But for the sake of those that need a little bit of extra time, I'm just going to give you a little bit more, just a minute, to find all those qalqalas. There's quite a few in this surah. Okay, let's try it. وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبَحًا. So that's our first one. ضَبَحًا. The ba's got a sukoon on it. فَالْمُورِيَاتِ قَدَحًا. So the dal with a sukoon on it, that's number 2. فَالْمُغِيرَاتِ صُبْحًا. So again, that's number 3 with the ba with the sukoon on it in صُبْحًا. فَأَثَرْنَ بِهِ نَقْعًا. So the qaf here is a qalqala letter, it has a sukoon on it, that's number 4. فَوَسَطْنَ بِهِ. The ta here has got a sukoon on it, and ta is one of the qalqala letters. فَوَسَطْنَ, that's 5. فَوَسَطْنَ بِهِ جَمْعًا إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لِرَبِّهِ لَكَنُودٌ. Okay, so the dal is the last letter of ayah number 6 in Lakanud, and dal is one of the qalqala letters, so that's number 6. وَإِنَّهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ لَشَهِيدٌ. Again, dal is one of the qalqala letters, it's at the end of the ayah, so we put a temporary sukoon on it, that's number 7. وَإِنَّهُ لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ. Again, the dal's got a sukoon on it because it's at the end of an ayah. Dal is a qalqala letter. That is 8. أَفَلَا يَعْلَمُ إِذَا بُعْثِرَ مَا فِي الْقُبُورِ. None. وَحُصِّلَ مَا فِي الصُّدُورِ. None. إِنَّ رَبَّهُمْ بِهِمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ لَخَبِيرٌ. Okay, so there should be 8 that you found. Okay, let's just quickly see whether we can find any ra's. Okay, the letter ra, when it's heavy. So ra with a fata, ra with a damma, ra with a fatatain, ra with a dammatain, or when ra has a sukoon and the letter before has a fata or a damma. I'll just give you a minute and we can just go through it together. Okay, remember that when the ra has one of those little dagger alifs, that's also heavy. Okay, let's go through it together. وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبَحًا. None. فَالْمُورِيَاتِ قَدَحًا. We have a ra there, but it's got kasra, so it's not heavy. فَالْمُغِيرَاتِ. That's 1, because the ra's got a little dagger alif on it. صُبْحًا. فَأَثَرْنَ بِهِ. We have a ra with a sukoon. We look at the letter before. The letter tha has a fata on it, so we would make it heavy. That's 2. فَأَثَرْنَ بِهِ نَقْعًا فَوَسَطْنَ بِهِ جَمْعًا. None. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لِرَبِّهِ. The ra has a fata on it. That's 3. لَكَنُودٌ وَإِنَّهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ لَشَهِيدٌ وَإِنَّهُ لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ. The ra's got a kasra on it, it's not heavy. لَشَدِيدٌ أَفَلَا يَعْلَمُ إِذَا بُعْثِرَ. Yep, the ra's got a fata on it in bu'thira, that's heavy. مَا فِي الْقُبُورِ. Okay, so here we have a ra with a kasra on it, but we're putting a temporary sukoon on it, so we look at the letter before. The letter before has a sukoon on it, so we look at the letter before that. And that ba has a damma, so we would make the ra heavy. That's 5. Okay, وَحُصِّلَ مَا فِي الصُّدُورِ. Again, the ra's got a temporary sukoon on it. We look at the letter before. The letter before is a waw, but it has a sukoon on it. So we look at the letter before that. The dal has a damma on it, and damma would make the ra heavy. So that ra is heavy. That's number 6. Inna rabbahum. That ra in rabbahum has a fata on it, so it is heavy. Rabbahum bihim yawma idhil la khabir. Okay, so we here again, we have the ra with a temporary sukoon on it because it's at the end of an ayah. We look at the letter before. The letter before has a sukoon on it, so we look at the letter before that. It has a kasra on it, so we do not pronounce the ra heavy in accordance to what we have learned so far. Okay, so that's 8. Okay, so 8 heavy ra's. And we will leave it as that, inshallah. Hopefully it's starting to get a little bit easier, I'm hoping. The more we practice, the more we find the rules, the quicker it will be you finding it, inshallah. And we will leave it as that for tonight, or today, sorry. And I'll see you tomorrow for the tajweed, inshallah.